next guest is Derek Sorensen. He is mathematician and of the research company. I'm sorry, I want to look which company it is. It's Peterex Corporation. Derek, you are online. Just you're welcome.
Hi, thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, the same. Nice to meet you here. Nice to meet you. And finally, maybe we'll be trying to meet together. But now we are for our audience online. It's your word.
Cool. Cool, yeah. My name is Derek. I do research on blockchains here at Pyrofex Corporation. And I work mainly in the underlying math of blockchains. So I'm a mathematician. That's sort of what I contribute in. And yeah, the space is lots of fun.
Okay, perfect. Just give us a bit more information. What actually do you do? How mathematician and you work in coupled with blockchain technology, in coupled with now ongoing trends. We just want to give us a bit more information about your business.
Sure. Yeah. So I've been working for the last 6 or so months on consensus algorithms. I've been doing lots of research there. So we recently wrote a consensus algorithm that is meant to be scalable enough to have a cryptocurrency that actually can be a currency on a more global scale. So that's where most of my work has been. I've been doing other research in sort of more foundational theory and mathematical foundations. So I just published a couple of papers that treat the mathematical foundations underlying consensus and why they're important to have right and what sort of the nuances are. So I explore things like attackers on the blockchain, network conditions and network models on the blockchain, and how that all affects how quickly a blockchain can run or how safe it is, things like that.
Okay, perfect. We just want to know how consensus at this moment working, where it actually is, and what's your research results. We want to understand how maybe it can be helpful for solving the problems which are now appeared, for example, in two great blockchains on Bitcoin and Ethereum.
Yeah, so the main problem that I see in blockchains that's keeping it from being something that we can really adopt globally is speed. We just simply can't get enough transactions through. So Bitcoin and Ethereum right now can process between 7 and 13, maybe a little more transactions per second. And if we want to run, more business on the blockchain and actually have it be something where we can process lots of transactions, we need things on the scale of 5,000, 10,000, 50,000 transactions per second, and not between 7 and 15. So that's the main problem from my point of view that's facing blockchain technology. Consensus is kind of all over the place. Lots of people are doing lots of different things. So the most popular ones are proof of work and proof of stake, and they have their advantages and their disadvantages, and every system is kind of nuanced. Lots of companies are coming out with their new consensus algorithms, and most have specific purposes. So there's some that are really fast but not very secure, and there's some that are very secure but not very fast, and there tends to be a bit of a trade-off with consensus algorithms.
Okay, Derek, we got your point, and we are eager to know, in your opinion, will the whole world eventually be on a single currency?
I'm very skeptical of that. I really don't think so. And the reason is because the world economy is very complicated, and the way that currency fits into the economy is very complicated. In particular, a government that is managing an economy of its country can influence inflation rates on the currency, and it can influence different different economic aspects of the country in such a way that can be favorable. So if the country is in an economic downturn, then it's useful to put more money into the system and sort of devalue your currency a little bit. And then you can lift your economy. And then if your economy is doing well, it's more useful to have a strong currency. And so the government can and really fine tune things, and that's often very useful. And so one example that I really like to point out is the Eurozone crisis that we've been seeing since the economic the Great Recession in 2008. Europe is still trying to recover from that. In particular, Greece and Italy and Spain and Portugal are still suffering from this crisis that happened more than 10 years ago. And one of the reasons why they're still suffering is that Greece in particular can't take full control of its currency because they're all on the euro. And so they're economically tied, but they don't have a central government that's strong enough to moderate the economies in such a way that they can sort of help each other. So Greece has it would be very useful for Greece to have a weaker currency than it has now. And it can't weaken its currency because it's tied to an economy like Germany that's very, very strong. Germany would normally have a stronger currency than it has now, but its currency is artificially weakened by Greece. And that is good for Germany because Germany mostly exports. And so Germany gets a lot of benefit and advantage out of this, and Greece gets a lot of the pain from it. And because they're tied on a single currency, but they're not under a single government, it's very hard for them to function. So I'm open to there being a possibility of some technological advancements that allow for some sort of natural economic regulation that happens on the blockchain. And I think that would be really fascinating research. But certainly what we have right now, it's simply not adaptable enough to be able to be part of every economy in the world. I think there could be lots of local currencies and then maybe one main global one that we sort of interact with. But I really don't think that we'll have one single currency everywhere.
Derek, from the beginning, as Bitcoin being designed from scratch, it should be any kind of currency in the world, which are somehow being substituted for now for the fiat or for any kind of currencies in this world. But now we see that algorithms which are being implemented in Bitcoin is not so convenient for the for the people around, for the whole humanity. That's why you are, as a mathematician, going to design another kind of consensus. Just in your vision, where all this crypto world, where this currency distribution is going to, just give us your opinion.
Yeah, if we can get consensus to be fast enough, I think that in my ideal world, in 20 years, every country will have replaced their fiat currency with a cryptocurrency, and we will work exclusively with crypto. I think that the blockchain has potential to completely disrupt and innovate all sorts of different economic sectors. One of the things that one of these that I think is most promising is the foreign exchange market of currencies. So countries, like the United States and Russia and China, just trillions of dollars go over borders every day. And people who are making these exchanges internationally are burdened by slow bank, like the banks are very slow, the SWIFT network is very slow, and it's very expensive. They just eat fees. And so if we can get a blockchain that's fast enough to handle this large-scale economy that's happening between countries, similar to if Bitcoin were just much, much, much faster, then I think that we could really streamline the foreign exchange market. We could make it much faster and much cheaper. I think from there, I really think that crypto has the potential to just completely overtake currency. And if it does that, I find that very exciting because because these big financial institutions in Europe and in the United States, they're really entrenched, and it's very hard to break into that market. They've set up really high barriers to entry. And so with something like cryptocurrency and Ethereum and smart contracts, you can make these financial services and these financial derivatives straight on the blockchain, and anybody can do it. And you don't have to go through this huge institution that's been built up. I find that very exciting and very liberating, and it just sort of democratizes money in a way that could really revolutionize our entire economy. So in my dreams, that's kind of where crypto is headed.
Hey, Derek, at this moment, we are clearly seeing that United States of America, for example, the Chase Bank, yes, JP Morgan, is already been implemented the stable coin, which is equal to US dollar, actually.
Mm-hmm.
And the bank is already implemented technology is. What's your opinion? What do you think? Is this technology, or is that kind of approach will be ever adopted as currency, as not cryptocurrency, as currency for the humanity?
Oh, just just straight currency. I think if these banks, I think a lot of banks are very interested in crypto and getting the blockchain integrated, and certainly banks have an interest in doing so, because if they don't, they might get overtaken by other competitors. And so something like what JP Morgan Chase is doing, I think is important. And I expect banks to integrate with crypto in a way that we won't really be able to tell the difference between if we're using fiat currency or if we're using cryptocurrency. It will just be sort of part of the system, and it will just make everything cheaper and easier. But I expect that the everyday person won't be able to tell the difference once we're using crypto.
Okay, I am personally also hope that everything is ongoing. And now what we see, a lot of governments, a lot of companies, a lot of countries also adopted, for example, two cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin and Ethereum, and there's some respective or regulation. Also, we are going to see that all this crypto industry and blockchain as is going to have some kind of very interesting use cases, and I hope that our world will be changing from fiat world to the digital, from e-money or something else, so the cryptocurrency to blockchain or something else. A lot of thanks to you for your time. We don't have so much time, yes, for asking you additional questions for our chat. Thanks a lot, Derek, being with us. Yeah, nice to meet you a bit later. Yes, but at this moment, I want to say you goodbye and best luck with your kind of consensus for whole humanity.
Thank you very, very much. Very nice to meet you. Очень приятно.
Perfect.
See ya.